14 years of my work experience, I worked on public policy, consulting, marketing. I've been an entrepreneur and I founded 3 companies, and I've just joined a VC fund. Given how the job market has changed and so many people now get into startups where MBAs really aren't a prerequisite, I think everyone should really think about कि ज़रूरत है कि नहीं. But like a lot of us do, we tell ourselves these stories that I can't give up, I can't quit. And I told myself all these stories that I have my MBA loan to pay off, and I can't give up, I can't quit.
He's also a non-engineer, so we have more diversity there as well. So a lot of people are looking forward to that, I hope. Without any further ado, can I request Sukhmani to come on stage, please? Big round of applause, guys. Sukhmani, you're from Delhi?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So tell us about your early days. What were you like as a child, as a teenager, as a college student?
So I'll just give a very sort of brief introduction about myself, and then So I'm from Delhi, born and brought up here. I did my schooling in Delhi. My whole family is in Delhi. Then did my undergrad in Delhi. Then did a master's in economics, which we'll talk about. Then I did an MBA. Studied way too much, which you should never do. So we'll talk about that as well. But in 14 years of my work experience, I worked on public policy, consulting, marketing. I've been an entrepreneur and I founded 3 companies, and I've just joined a VC fund 1 month ago. So I feel like I've had a lot of variety in my career. And, I don't know if that's good or bad, but, it's been fun. So.
Yeah, so again, I mean, obviously all of this will get covered as we go along. So the first question is, what were you like as a youngster growing up in Delhi? Were you clear that you wanted to do economics? What was the original thought like?
So, so we're talking about 2001-2, right? I'm a millennial. We weren't exposed at all as much as Gen Zs are. I didn't think anything. The only thing I knew is that I never thought about engineering or medicine, right? Which a lot of the girls in my school, I was in science, so a lot of the girls in my class were studying for that. That was never even something that I considered. And जो लोग वो नहीं करते थे, वो लोग Delhi University में जाते थे. And in Delhi University, there were 2 choices. You either did BCom honors or economics honors. And honestly, it wasn't thought about at all. And I just picked economics because I got in. In hindsight, I wish I'd done BCom because, as it turns out, I have a lot more interest in business than I knew at the time. But it's just like जैसे बच्चे engineering करते हैं, वैसे मैंने भी economics कर ली. So it wasn't like when I was 15 years old, I was like I want to do economics honors one day, not at all.
But did you do other things in college apart from studying?
Just wasted time, I didn't do anything. I learned Spanish because I was so guilty. Delhi, so people say that IIT is a waste of time and engineering colleges are a waste of time. Those people don't know what Delhi University is like. Okay, 2 महीने पढ़ना पड़ता है साल में. अब change हो गया है because now they have like internal assessments and they have like exams throughout the year. पूरा साल waste. Okay, 2 महीने या 3 महीने पढ़ना पड़ता है maximum. Which means that like 9 months in a year, you're literally doing nothing. In fact, in my time, attendance wasn't even mandatory. So you can just chill for 9 months. And I used to feel so guilty because all I did is waste time for 3 years. I started learning Spanish because kar lo, kuch to karo life ke saath, which I can't speak a word of now. But I just didn't do anything. So I just only wasted time in college.
But having said that, you still landed up working for IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Yes. So how did you crack that?
So, I think one theme that's been consistent was in my life, and was, I knew I wanted to be in development somehow. I wanted to do something that has some impact, make some social impact. So economics to ऐसे कर ली, because I was like, चलो, इतने marks मिले, ये college मिले, eco honors is a good course, did eco honors. After that, my parents were like, पहले masters कर लो, फिर जो करना है करना. So I think their thinking was that, like we just want our daughter to be educated, and in their mind it was like a tick mark हो जाएगा, masters भी हो जाएगा, and then like she's settled, we've done our duty. So, and I also, didn't know any better because I'd wasted 3 years in college. So they were like, masters kar lo. I was like, chalo kar lete hain. Prepared for my GRE, I got into Cambridge, so that was good. So yeah, that's it. So then I went to Cambridge. I did a degree there for 2 years. And while it was a great brand, and I, of course I don't regret it, but again, I feel like I studied too much. It really wasn't required in the larger scheme of things. And even at Cambridge, I was quite sure. So most people at that time, so jaise ab startups hai and VC funds hai, that time it was banking, investment banking and consulting firms. So everyone wanted to get into consulting firms or investment banking. So for me, I was very clear that I want to do something in the development space. So I applied to a bunch of these these sort of organizations in public policy, organization, sort of multilateral organizations funding development across the world. Got into IMF again by a stroke of luck, and that's it. Then flew to America, worked there for 2 years.
Sidetracking, a question tha. How intense is the Cambridge versus Oxford rivalry, and did you ever participate in any of it? What do you think of it?
It's very intense. It's very, very intense. But I'm not a sporty person, so I didn't participate in anything. But it is very intense.
No, but like they do all kinds of things, like debating.
Everything. It's very intense. Super intense. I mean, I didn't participate, but I was always there, like, when people were participating. I was very lazy even then. So I'm the kind of person who does, if I have to do something like, study for a GRE, get into Cambridge, study there, I do it. But, beyond that, it's very difficult to get me to do anything. So I'm really, really lazy, which is why even there, it's not like, people do all kinds of things. Like you said, debating and this and that. I never did anything again. I just chilled, studied and chilled.
And which city is more beautiful, Oxford or Cambridge, or the areas where all the colleges are? Do you have a...
Cambridge is more beautiful. So yeah, then I went to America, worked at the IMF for 2 years. It was very exciting because I just going to to America, and I was young at the time, and it's such a sort of well-known organization, and there are all these famous economists who'd come for talks. So as a young person, you're completely floored by that. But it's also a very, very difficult experience for me because I didn't know anybody in America. I literally didn't know a single person there.
Which city were you based out of?
Washington. That's where the headquarters are. And I didn't know anyone. And IMF is not like a bank or a consulting firm where it's full of young people you can be friends with. The average age over there is 70. And everyone has an office. So I had a very big office. And I didn't know, it was so depressing. It was this large office where you shut the door. And I used to just sit and be like, I don't know anyone in this country, in this city, in this office. Am I ever going to make friends? So it was a difficult experience. Ultimately, I did make friends. But it was interesting.
So who was the president then? Obama, when you were there?
Yeah, Obama was elected when I was there. So that was very interesting.
That would have been an experience.
And So and Washington is a completely democratic city. So it was mad when he got elected.
What was the work that you did?
I was a research assistant. Basically, that means कि Excel sheet में बैठकर एक तो research करो, and Excel sheet में बैठ के data entry करो and analysis करो. Yeah, it's just basically, it was not very fun work. At that time, it was okay because my first job, so I didn't mind. But I realized that, when I was at the IMF, I realized that it was not what I thought it would be like. I thought it would be closer to consulting or like, consulting with countries. But it's more academic. And to rise in an organization like that is very similar to how you rise in academia. You have to get published. You have to do a lot of research. That wasn't who I was. The other thing that I realized is that, I just missed India terribly. I had a blast when I was in Washington. I made really close friends. And we partied our ass off. But I just missed India all the time. So I think after that, I was very sure, okay, I want to live in India only. I don't want to go anywhere. So after finishing my contract for 2 years, what most people end up doing is then go ahead and do their PhDs. I came back and joined a consulting firm.
How was the money while working at IMF?
It was okay. good for me. It was my first job, but you know.
So, how did you decide to then get into an MBA?
So MBA happened because I was in consulting, right? So I came back, I joined consulting, and then and I enjoyed that a lot.
Where did you consult?
Deloitte. I was a strategy consultant working on public health and public and private healthcare. So that was very interesting also because again, that development theme was there. So development theme was there, but also kind of, you know, I was also interested in, you know, just the business aspect of things. So I took care of that as well. But yeah, you know, like any consultant, you know, you kind of spend 2 years there and then, you know, then the track is to do an MBA. And I really did enjoy it. So I was like, you know, this is interesting. I wouldn't mind being a consultant for the next few years. The track is to now do an MBA. So let me waste more time and more money. And then that's how it happened.
So how was the prep for the exam then? Was it easy, hard?
Not hard, yeah. It's okay. GMAT is easier than CAT.
And you never thought of doing an MBA in India?
I applied to ISB, so I couldn't do both. I was like, I mean, मैं इतनी पागल नहीं हूँ कि मैं CAT भी कर दूँ, GMAT भी कर दूँ. So I was like, and you know, so I was like, I'll do an MBA abroad. I'll do a short MBA. I'll do a 1-year MBA. I'll apply to ISB as well. But I got into Insead. I got into a bunch of other programs too, which were 2-year programs in the US. But then I was like, you know, it's too expensive, and I've already done a degree. 1-year program makes a lot more sense. So I went to Insead then.
So tell us about that time. What was the? Did you like it? Also, I think you went to like couple of campuses, right? It was not only.
So you do, you know. So I started in Singapore because I'd already been to Cambridge, which was in England, and I thought that the France experience would be very similar. It's a small town, very villagey. So I was like, it'd be a nice experience going to a big city. So I started in Singapore, and yeah, it was amazing. It was the best time of my life.
Really?
We have common friends. I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah, but was it better than your Cambridge experience?
Yeah, it was just the best. I think it was also the best because not just in terms of being in a big city and it was a lot of fun. There were lots of other things, right? It was very international, which was just amazing fun. Like Insead is one of the most international schools in the world. So it really felt like a mini UN, and just interacting and studying with literally the most diverse community was amazing. The other thing was, I think for the first time in my life, I really enjoyed what I was learning. I don't know if this is the same at IIM and the Indian schools, but they don't disclose your marks to your employers. So, you know, when you go and give an exam, as long as you know you're passing, you don't give a shit. So, you know, and that was like, it was easy to pass. So it was just like you're in the classroom because you wanted to know, you know. And and because I'd never done any formal training in business, I was very interested in learning the basics of marketing, the basics of accounting, the basics of finance. So yeah, I think it was just it was learning for the fun of it, for the first time in my life. So I really enjoyed it.
And there'll be a common question here as well as in the comment section later between 2 year versus 1 year. And you obviously you had a lot of fun, but do you feel like 2 साल का MBA होता तो और मजा आता?
No, you know, I think things have changed a lot. Times have changed a lot. When I did my MBA, it was important to get an MBA, but that's not true anymore, right? I'll tell you what is important. What's important is to have some branding. It really helps. I'm not saying that if you don't have branding, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. Like enough people who don't have any sort of brand on their CV, you know, compensate just through their skills, their hard work, you know, just their charisma, their ability to impress interviewers and so on and so forth. But, you know, it's been a while since I did my degrees. I'm 37 now, so it's been 14 years. But whether it's fundraising for your startup, whether it's getting your job, your door in, like, you know, for your sort of foot in the door for an interview, a brand always helps. So that part is still relevant. But given how the job market has changed and so many people now get into startups where MBAs really aren't a prerequisite, I think everyone should really think about कि ज़रूरत है कि नहीं. Because as far as, you know, like, and this is common knowledge, right? Like in an MBA, what is more important is, you know, the connections that you make and the fun that you have. As far as learning is concerned, you can learn that stuff on YouTube, or like you read 2 or 3 books, you learn it. So it's not like, you don't go there to learn anything. I mean, you can learn it for free. You don't have to waste the money to learn. And especially today. You know, at that time, you know, people in the corporate, and I always thought I wanted to be in the corporate sector. You know, nobody's been talking about startups, or at least not enough at the time when I did my MBA. So, you know, then the general thinking was join a company, sort of, rise in the, in the corporate sector. And in that sort of, when you're doing that, then of course an MBA is important, right? But in today's times, I think people should really question themselves before they decide to invest money in an MBA degree.
Got it. And for everybody else who doesn't want to do that, there's always Altuni. Please remember that. Okay. So, where did you work after the MBA?
So after the MBA, I was really I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. I really wanted to get into consulting, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. I got calls from everywhere, all the consulting firms for interviews, but didn't crack it. So I joined Philips. I joined their strategy team. But very soon I realized that, it's not you don't want to be like a cost center in a company, right? It's just no fun, because people then start treating you a certain way. You want to be in the profit center. You want to be doing the main work. So then I really hustled. I was like, please put me in marketing. Please put me in marketing. It took 1.5 years, because they also take people with a certain pedigree and background in marketing, but they took me. There was one, sacrifice that I had to make for this shift. I had to move to Chennai. And it wasn't just moving to Chennai. So Philips had acquired a company called Preeti. And I had to go and work in the factory of Preeti, which was, on the way from Chennai to Pondicherry. There's a road, EMR road? ECR road. So it was an ECR road, that factory. Everyone in that factory spoke Tamil. And I was just this person sitting there. So that's a sacrifice I had to make, to move to marketing.
Yeah, apne Spanish. You should have learned Tamil.
Exactly. And when I look back, I feel like kitne papad mile hain yaar, seriously. But I was, at that time I was obsessed with being in marketing. I was just like, this is the right path, and I want to be in the corporate sector, and I want to rise in the corporate sector, and I want to have a business role, and I want to head a business, and this is what I want. But it was a really important experience in my life, because I think being in Philips made me realize, when I got into marketing, that it's not what I wanted. So, you know how it is, like you think that I'd love to head a business and I'd love to have like this key portfolio worth so many crores, so many, hundreds of crores. And then you kind of look at your bosses who are doing that. And then you think that, do I really want to be this person? And the answer was a straight no, I don't. So it was a good, though I had to make a lot of sacrifices and I was really out of place in Chennai, but overall it turned out to be a good experience, because it told me very clearly what I didn't want.
How long did you spend in Chennai?
1.5 years. I used to come back every weekend though, but yeah.
So you were like a consultant?
I was, pretty much.
So when did the entrepreneurial bug hit you?
So, when I wasn't very, I always felt like a miss. So I wasn't, the whole Chennai situation obviously wasn't the ideal fit, because just language and other cultural barriers were there. Because I was in a factory, I wasn't even in the main office. And then the other thing was that I just, being in that company, in that role, I began to feel that it's just not what I wanted. But like a lot of us do, we kind of we tell ourselves these stories that I can't give up, I can't quit. And, I told myself all these stories that, I have my MBA loan to pay off, and I can't give up, I can't quit. I'll never quit, And I stayed for much longer than I needed to, and I wasn't necessarily happy there. Then I saw this video, and it's a very popular video. A lot of you may have seen it on YouTube. It's this video where this guy's giving a commencement speech, and he says that, you can fail at doing something that you don't want to do. So you may as well take a chance at what you want to do. And that kind of really resonated with me, because I realized that I wasn't doing spectacularly well in my job because I wasn't happy anyway. And, I was telling myself all these stories, I have to do it. For some reason, I can't quit. And I was failing at it. And that just kind of really resonated with me, right? Like you can think you're making a sacrifice, being very responsible, and you can still fail at it. So why not do something that you want to do and fail at that?
So what is it that you wanted to do?
So I want to do something on my own then.
So it was just that now I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what product.
Even that journey was the way I started. So I was like, I want to do something on my own, because this is not going to work for me, this whole corporate setup. So I was like, okay, ab kya karna hai? Ab socho, idea socho, which is again something a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. Then a really close friend of mine was also like, yeah, even I want to do something. I'm done with my corporate job. Let's do something together. and a lot of things start like that. आप idea सोचते हैं. उस time हमने, so there are two ways, right? You have a startup. Either you sort of identify a problem, which is the ideal way, and you're like, this is a problem, and ये solve करनी है, and this is how I can solve it. And the other way is that you're like, यार business करना है, and अब idea ढूंढना है. So I was the latter in my first business, and so we just took a very consulting approach. We were like, क्या कर सकते हैं? Started looking at opportunities. China और अमेरिका में कौन सी बड़ी companies हैं जो इंडिया में नहीं है, और उस टाइम ये हो रहा था ना, because it's 2015. So everything was just starting out. So we like वैसे करते हैं कि ये देखते हैं कि चाइना और इंडिया में क्या बड़ा जो इंडिया में नहीं है. And we came, so we realized that recipes, was a very interesting category because Indians cook a lot. They're the largest consumers of recipe videos on YouTube, and and a lot of other statistics like that. But there's no large recipe platform in India, and recipe platforms all over the world have traffic of hundreds of millions of users. A lot of them are public or valued in billions of dollars, and this should happen in India as well. So that's how the idea of my first startup came about, and we decided to make a user-generated recipe platform. That's what we started building.
What was it called?
It was called Better Butter.
Better Butter.
Yeah. So that was called Better Butter. Very quickly on the journey of Better Butter. So basically, it was a recipe app where users and basically women homemakers could come and add recipes. They could do this across 7 Indian languages. They could even add videos. So take short snippets of videos while they were cooking, and we would use technology to stitch it at the back and beautify it. It was a really, a lot of it did very well, and I think because we were able to sort of touch a key sort of insight or a key nerve, you can say, like a lot of women across India who are homemakers and are excellent cooks. Once their children grow up, they don't find the validation. And it's the same insight that a Meesho or any of these now social selling startups have, right? That they're looking for validation and they're looking for an identity of themselves once their kids grow up. So it's very similar in Better Butter, right? All these women who are amazing cooks, beyond their children and their husbands, there's nobody to really appreciate them. Built it over 3.5 years. We had a massive community of about 3 million users who added 200,000 recipes. And then we ended up selling it in 2019.
But before we go to the exit, entry पे पहले ये बताओ, लोगों को बताया कैसे कि Better Butters is there? How did you distribute? How did people come to know about this recipe platform? What is the marketing strategy for people to know about it?
So we raised money fairly quickly. We raised at a PPT stage. So in that sense, we were lucky. So marketing, we hacked a lot of social media. I think we were lucky because this is it's a space that there was already a lot of activity. So we weren't building a new market, right? There were large groups on Facebook. At that time, Facebook was bigger than Instagram. Women were already sharing recipes on a daily basis on Facebook, and doing things like that. Basically playing on the same insight that women are looking for, that validation and a sense, a sense of self.
So when did monetization come into the picture?
Towards the end, we started tying up with brands, mostly food brands. And basically, they could do various things around a community, test products, advertise, contests, things like that.
Then why did you decide to sell? Were you enjoying doing that?
So I really enjoyed doing it. But I think what my partner and I realized is that our assumptions about the size of the market or the TAM were wrong.
TAM is total addressable market.
So we looked at all these startups in the US and China, and the way the content startups monetize theirs through ads. And we thought that at that time we assumed that in the next few years the ad market in India is going to grow very fast and it's going to become massive. That didn't happen. The other thing is that most of the ad revenue is anyway taken by the Facebooks and Googles of the world. So it leaves very little it's very difficult to monetize through the ad revenue way, which is why now even the other content startups in India are doing other things, right? Starting lending and all kinds of things, because ad revenue just will not give you a large enough market. So I think my partner and I just realized that, look, the content engine is working very well. We think we've created something of value, but this is not a VC-backed business. We raised some venture capital over a period of 3 years, not a lot, about $1.5 million. And and it was a point when we were like, we have to raise our next now proper round, and we couldn't justify it in our heads because you're lying to yourself, right? Like we could always sort of weave a story and tell investors that, but then you're lying to yourself, and your most valuable currency is your time. So we'd be wasting our own time if we raised a bigger round. We'd be wasting our own time building this, knowing that it wasn't a VC business. It just wasn't large enough business. It made a lot more sense being a part of a larger strategic play.
I've heard this thing. I don't know how true it is. It's hard to sell a business. You can't actually go around selling business. It's just that you get bought because somebody finds it interesting what you're doing.
It's very tough. Yeah. In fact, in Better Butter we lucked out. Because
there's this constant pattern in everything you're saying.
Yeah.
You are lucky to get into this. You are lucky to get into IMF. Then you are lucky to get into Insead. Then you are lucky to get this job. And now you're lucky to get a funding also quickly on a PPT. Then she's lucky to get an exit. I think you've been a little less kind to yourself.
No, but a lot of life is luck. Yeah. I've also had a lot of bad luck, which I'll talk about now. After that was 3 years of terrible luck, which is why I talk about luck so much. Luck, it's very difficult. You're right, you have to be bought out. You can't go to people and say, hame khareed lo. It just doesn't work that way. But in our case, the investors really sort of believed in the thesis, in the story. So they made the deal happen. So, lucked out. Since we're talking about luck, I'll talk about the next 2.5 years where I didn't have the best luck and then what brought me to where I am today. So at Better Butter, I got obsessed with the idea of building an offline Meesho. And because I'd worked with so many women, and I also had the same insight again, like what every social selling app has about, that there's this huge population, entrepreneurial population in India which can be tapped. Right? They're looking for an identity, they want to do something with their time, and they can be tapped, and you can do something for them. So the idea was that, look, pop-ups happen across India. And the very interesting thing about a small pop-up, and there are also physical boutiques, right? In every society, whether it's a metro, tier 1, tier 2 town, there is a woman who's doing some kind of tailoring business and selling clothes. So what we thought is that, and the thing is that, the conversion in these type of things is very high. So we were like, what we wanted to do is basically democratize pop-ups. We wanted to enable women across India to host pop-up shows. The ops part of it was very difficult, but we did some sort of POCs, the proof of concepts, and we found that the conversion is 60 to 70%. Because what happens is, like a woman in society will say, कि मैं एक exhibition कर रही हूँ, मेरे घर पे आ जाओ. Obviously, houses are small, so she'll invite maximum 10 people, 10 friends. Friends in India is equal to neighbors and family. So her neighbors and family come over, basically ladies, they have chai, they try clothes. So one of the biggest problems is solved, which is fit, especially for older women. Then there's a lot of social validation, FOMO, friends are discussing, chatting, somebody goes to the bathroom, comes out wearing something, other friends clap, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, they end up buying. So the demand side was so exciting, the conversion was so high that it justified building a business where the ops was very, very complex. But we were like, we can do it. So I became, really sort of enthused with this idea. Took 6 months off after Better Butter because I had a baby. Then for the next 6 months, I hustled to find a co-founder. Finally found somebody because I knew what my, I didn't have any sort of knowledge of fashion or the vendor side or the ops side. So I was looking for somebody like that. A friend, sort of introduced me to this guy who had worked in Jabong, Myntra for many years, headed a lot of categories, built the businesses, so sort of perfect fit. We raised a little bit of money as well it was called Zopnik, for Zopnik from Antler Global. But we launched in 2020, and that's also when we raised the money, in March 2020. And that's when COVID hit India, basically. So the whole idea that लोग किसी के घर पे जाएंगे अभी shopping करने के लिए, that was not going to happen. People were so terrified. We were like, अब क्या करें? We were like, अच्छा, live streaming करते हैं. Which was, it was a very poor substitute because the only reason to do a business like this was because when you meet physically, the whole FOMO and the social validation leads to high conversions. Without that, like live streaming is like, it's just partly better than e-commerce, not even, right? So it didn't work. After that, my partner wanted to, we wanted to go in different directions. He wanted to build a B2B fashion company. I didn't want to do B2B at that time. I was like, I'll never do B2B. Again, I'll come back to this, never say never. So I was like, okay, you know what? We're pivoting. It's a good time for a clean exit. So I left. Bad luck number 1. While I was in Zopnik, I was like, so we were working with a lot of data scientists. And we were like, because we had to match the inventory with the host जो live stream कर रही है. Otherwise बहुत ज़्यादा wastage होता. So उसके बाद I started thinking, yeah, there's something here. We can do something disruptive here because the D2C brands in India have exploded like they have in the rest of the world because of Facebook and Instagram focusing on shopping. And much more personalization is needed than is being offered today. Because now the consumer has a Myntra and Nykaa in their mind, but on the other side of their mind, there's also these amazing brands they see on Instagram, right? How do they discover them? So there's already that the consumer's mind space is being sort of divided between the large horizontal e-commerce formats and the smaller brands, niche brands. So then I just became very excited, and now the WhatsApp API is very easily available. So I was like, how exciting would it be to be able to send a catalog to the user every month, once a month, which understands everything, right? Your taste, your preferences, your budget, your needs, basically a AI ML play, a data science play. So I was quite excited about the idea again, started looking for a partner. I put an ad on LinkedIn this time for a partner, for a co-founder. And I found this amazing co-founder, very, very smart guy from Hyderabad, super smart data scientist, also bought into the idea, really liked it. So we started building. We built for 6 months, onboarded 100 brands, built the earlier version of the algo, the earlier version of the product, launched in July, had really good metrics, because obviously there is a need for something like that, right? We started with fashion, but we were like, we'll do beauty, we'll do baby, we'll do all kinds of things. So 3 months, excellent metrics. We were like, up to we'll kill it, because like everything's a tick mark, not teams a tick mark, metrics are a tick mark, everything's a tick mark. But it didn't quite happen like that because I spoke to a few investors, and just some of the, it's just like really smart people in the ecosystem told me that this is never going to work. Including like senior people at like big Series B and C companies. And when they say that, then you're like, there's no point raising a seed or a Series A because they'll never raise a follow-on round. And they were like, this will never work because it's a feature, it's not a business. Ultimately, you're going to have to compete with the Nykaa and a Myntra and like a Geo, like with every Geo, everyone. So this is just a feature. It's a way to enter the market, but you can't build a business around it. I got completely devastated for 15 days. I was so depressed. But when I thought about it, I realized they're right, and I missed a very, very important fact. They were absolutely right. And at that point, after my sort of depression, after I got over it, I was like, I'm 37. And as it is, when you start a company, the odds are stacked against you as a founder, right, in a tech startup. And by starting something like this, where the market is so crowded, the odds are going to be even more stacked against me. And at this age and at this point in my life, do I want to take that risk? And I decided no. But there was also another thing, which was that we had very good metrics. Something was working, and my partner and I knew that. So we decided to pivot to B2B. So again, never say never, which is why I left Zopni to begin with. And now, that's doing very well. So, but good for my, partner. So then we said, okay, fine. So let's build this out. Let's build out the algorithm. And we license the algo, we license the catalog to companies, for better personalization. We think catalogs work. So yeah, that was the thing. And I decided that I'll, sort of do it. I'll spend some time on it as a side hustle. But the moment we get our first order, we'll get a young CEO to run it, and I'll kind of move on. And yeah, and then one thing led to another. I was like, "Nab kya karna hai? I should work in a startup, head a business. That makes the most sense." Randomly applied to VC, and how it is, life. It just happens,
But I mean, at 37, CEOs are young, right? Or they're not?
At 37?
Yeah, no?
Yeah, that's true. When I say young, I mean like 25. So younger than me. What we didn't do at the time is that we didn't put strong sort of short-term KPIs for us and really ask ourselves the hard question that is it working? What happens is like a part of your business is working very well, but there is a small part that's not really working, it's not really exploding. But you can keep telling yourself, but this part is working so well. I feel like if we'd identified that at the right time, we would have pivoted. I don't know how many people here have a first startup or thinking of their first startup. Is that it's, in your first startup, it's very difficult to let people go.